And what is up, guys? Technical Stinkers here, checking in on our little 3D print operation for today. If you're unfamiliar, I own a business and I got interested in 3D printing, thought I could make a little side hustle out of it, seeing if I can extract some blood from the stone with these machines to make a little extra scratch. Follow along in my process, maybe you could teach me some tips and tricks and maybe learn from me at least what not to do along the way. So what am I working on today? Well, kind of having a lot of revelations with this sort of whole 3D print thing through the various sort of things. If you're unfamiliar, I'm going to do a farm tour video, but I've got super big printer here, some, you know, generally large printers here, some bamboos, doing a lot of different sort of things with functional prints, art prints, back and forth, exploring the various facets. And if you've been with the channel for a while, you already know that. But it's through these processes that I've kind of changed a lot from the beginning. If you watch the original videos, I had delusions of grandeur of having a warehouse full of bamboos spitting out slinky dragons and fidget spinners, but it became pretty apparent from the beginning that that probably didn't have a lot of legs to it, and I know a lot of people make a lot of money doing that kind of thing, but I was generally more interested in functional prints, and art prints kind of was a spin-off, a tangent from there, because I saw what kind of money those could make, and especially with the Orange Storm Giga, what sort of potential lies in printing stuff that's a lot bigger than what most people are able to do. And so you may have heard me mention a few times that I really kind of cut my teeth with 3D printing and selling 3D prints off crypto mining based stuff. So these little shrouds here that go on a particular crypto miner, it's by far and away my best seller. I didn't design this. You can download this anywhere. But I did ask the person where it came from, like, is it okay to sell this? And they said okay. But at that point, I don't think it really mattered because everybody and their mother was selling these anyway. But since I have another YouTube channel, I was able to kind of advertise them and say, like, hey, I sell these things and go here and you get a discount or whatever. And so that was certainly like my first foray into it. And so from there, it kind of expanded. And so if you've been following my channel, you know I've been trying doing like the character models and like computer stands, bigger art models, everything in between. Like if something comes along, I'll try it. You know, at least I'll start the project. Whether I finish it or not is another story, but I've tried not to narrow my focus too much into one particular area. Because again, I see a lot of like other creators like make things that are like super simple stuff I would never have thought of. I mentioned this before too, like you know, coasters. Like I would never have thought to make drink coasters. I don't use drink coasters. But people want drink coasters, and so it's, you know, it's kind of escapes my brain, and I think that's probably why maybe I'm not seeing any sales on Etsy. I know I'm priced way too high because, again, I'm coming from a place where I'm super biased. I have this other business, I do well, and so selling things on Etsy for a $1 or $2 profit doesn't really excite me, and especially if I don't see that there's a volume potential behind it, because honestly, if you made, just using drink coasters as an example, how many drink coasters could you possibly sell on Etsy through the course of the year? Now, sure, if you were the #1 supplier of drink coasters, yeah, maybe, but you know, anyone can make a drink coaster. And so I understand, like with Etsy, you know, you have a lot of products, and that's how everyone sort of says to do it. Constantly be introducing new products, have hundreds of products on your Etsy store, and then you make it up through this people sort of organically looking around for those things. You can do Etsy ads and have other platforms and things like that, comprehensive, all boiling in. But kind of, again, taking a step back, a 30,000 foot view of everything, I started looking at what I'm, you know, really investing my time in. So like these large prints that require painting, didn't want to do that originally. I've constantly said that I don't like doing these large prints, but you know, like, you know, I'll deal with it, and you know, in the formative stages to just prove and make some sales. But as again, I was painting the Rhino. I was looking at it and thinking, this thing really looks like shit. I wouldn't buy this. I don't think anyone else would buy this. And I kept telling myself, like, it's just a concept of printing it in small pieces, gluing it together, and then painting it, and maybe it would work out. But it just didn't work out. And so I thought, well, maybe I print it in, you know, one big go on the Giga. But then who's going to buy a Rhino head? How many Rhino heads am I going to possibly sell? And what do I need to sell a Rhino head for? To really make it worthwhile? Am I going to paint that Rhino head? Because I'd probably have to. Most people don't want to paint their own Rhino head. The people who are shelling out hundreds of dollars for a Rhino head probably don't want to paint it. I don't want to paint it either. I'm not good at painting. I don't feel like focusing on painting and improving my skill in painting, because I don't see that skill as very practical really elsewhere. And when I say painting, I don't mean painting a wall in your house. I mean painting artistically. And so far as the other things too, like the big gun models, I have to paint those because there's so much filament involved. If there is a failure, it would be a massive waste of filament, and that's why I don't print them in the color filament that they really should be. For instance, that green Army filament that the Glock comes in, and sure, I could print the lower section in that, but there are parts within that that are black. So I'd have to split the model, then glue it together, and then ship it. It's, again, more post-production. I'm backing up, again, looking at that 30,000 foot view, going back to basics and sort of thinking like, this just isn't worth the time. And so you may have recalled the other day when I mentioned this thing, this low effort print that I put on Etsy, this SSD tray. You know, this is an attribution model off Thingiverse. It's ultra simple, required virtually no editing or very simple editing. It can print up pretty quick, can print it in various colors and throw it on there, and it's like a $2 rip. And so I started thinking to myself, you know, the amount of labor that I put into this, because I think a lot of people don't put a price on their labor when they're doing all this stuff. Because again, I know everyone watching's from a different walk of life. Like maybe you can't leave home, you can't work, you're disabled, you're looking for some side income, something you can do kind of here and there. And so making a $2 rip times 10 a day is kind of worth it. That extra 20 bucks a day is worth it. And so again, I'm not trying to sort of invalidate people that are coming from that place. But for me personally, it's not worth it. And so again, I was focusing on large prints. Like I'd rather have that big pop of money. And I think it was yesterday's video that I even said that. I just want those big pops of money. And I think that's what sort of spurred me to sort of start thinking down this line that doing the big art prints, doing the stuff that requires really any level of post-production, again, going back to what I said originally, is just not worth the time. Stuff like this is worth the time, but the profit is very low. So you have to sell it in volume. So does that mean that I'm going to start selling slinky dragons and fidget spinners and things like that? No, absolutely not, because those things, I just don't see those having any legs or length. Chasing trends, yeah, absolutely, but what's the next trend? Because to catch the trend, you have to pay attention, and that's another important consideration as well. Am I extremely online paying attention to the trends of the time? I'm a 40-year-old man. No, I'm not. You know, so I don't really see myself being able to fall into that category. So I'm really thinking it's things like this that are the meal ticket. And these are the kind of things that everyone else seems to print, mainly like tool holders or things to help in the workshop or things to mount your DeWalt battery to the wall, stuff like that. I just, in my mind, sort of consider that like, you know, well, there's a finite amount of people that have DeWalt batteries to mount to the wall and are willing to pay $10 to buy that mount to put it on their wall, versus just looking on Amazon, because those kind of things exist on Amazon. I can't, maybe it's because I can't wrap my head around why someone would buy something like that off of Etsy or any other website other than Amazon to get it. Now I know some people do Amazon FBA and they sell those widgets on Amazon, and you know that certainly could be sort of the option through there. But that is kind of dangerous in my opinion, because you're, you know, maybe potentially in the future competing with operators like Slant3D, like drop shippers, like other people who are just going to move in and blow you out of the water with ads, because like things like a DeWalt battery holder, that's a standardized sort of thing that some factory in China could make and mass produce and then slap it on Amazon, and you're kind of, you know, all that time and effort that you put in was really for nothing. So I'm not saying I really have a solution in place, but it has prompted larger questions, maybe questions that you have had as a potential Etsy seller, a current Etsy seller, I don't know. I'd love to hear back from you and know what you think in the comments, whether it's just a matter of sort of biting your lip and saying like, yeah, I'm gonna sell a bunch of stuff that I have no interest in whatsoever, but it sells. And you know, how do you arrive at deciding what to sell? Because you know, sure, I could go down the line and make a bunch of drink coasters. I'm not going to do that, but I could make an infinite amount of drink coasters with all different various designs. But then it's like, you know, how do you know? Are there people who are interested in drink coasters? Additionally, upon further inspection with the car fender, yeah, you can't get a lot of money for car fenders unless it's like an exotic car or some car they don't make anymore. Then you have to get the file. You have to find the file somewhere and then be able to edit it or create the file. So I'm not too sure how much potential is there, although if people come to you looking for that and you advertise it that way, sure, there could be some potential. But for me, again, going back to the simplistic sort of view, low effort, easy to slap and spit out and then just make it up in volume, I don't know that stuff like that really works. So what am I going to use the Giga for? Well, big stuff, art prints, things like that, because I do have a retail outlet that I can move through. So for instance, things like the giant Moai head, you know, I'm going to list it on Etsy, the giant T-Rex sculpt, still listed on Etsy. just going to leave it up there for an indefinite period of time and maybe someone buys it. Let's give it a year. If no one buys it within a year, then I'll just pull it off and sell it in my store. No harm done. It works as decoration if it doesn't work as something people want to buy. Plus I could sell it for like, you know, $200 in my store and still make money off of it versus selling on an Etsy. Like I have to account for Etsy fees and shipping fees and all these other things. I can certainly move it through that way. It's just I'm showcasing it to a very small audience of people, much smaller than just the internet overall. And so, you know, what's the solution? I don't know. Drop prices, take a smaller rip. You know, that works for a lot of people. It just does not work for me. It does not excite me making a very small amount of money. So I really think ultimately for scalability, for ease of brain power, to just slap things in a box, kind of got to eat crow on this one and just say, like, you're going to have to print boring stuff and just a lot of it. And so I think that's the strategy maybe moving forward, is just going around looking for either attribution models or paid models or subscription-based things where you have access to a whole bunch of files at once. And you just print one of them, take a nice picture, put it online, and then maybe you sell it. And you do that times 500, and then hopefully you make enough to make it worth your while. Again, I'd love to know what you think in the comments below. Is this the wrong path to go down? Would you stick to giant art prints that require you to paint and stuff? Are you not afraid? I'm not afraid of a little work. Would you do that kind of thing? Or would you sort of adopt the path that everyone else seems to work on, that I thought I was smarter than everybody, I'm gonna go a different way, and it's just not working out? What would you do? Just let me know in the comments. Be sure to like the video and subscribe for more content like this. I'm The Technicals. See you next time.